Good evening. Tonight, I want to talk about a small, butterfly-shaped gland sitting quietly at the base of your neck that controls more of your daily health than almost anything else in your body, and yet it's one of the most commonly overlooked, misdiagnosed issues in adults over 65. I'm talking about your thyroid, and what concerns me after more than 2 decades in clinical practice is how often thyroid dysfunction in older adults gets completely missed. Not because doctors don't know to test for it, but because the symptoms look so much like everyday aging that nobody thinks to ask the question in the first place. I'm Dr. Will Graham, and tonight I'm going to walk you through 5 warning signs that your thyroid may be struggling, signs that are frequently dismissed, misattributed, or simply accepted as an unavoidable part of getting older. By the time we reach the 5th sign, I think you'll understand exactly why this gland deserves so much more attention than it typically receives. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that approximately 20% of women and 16% of men over the age of 65 have some form of thyroid dysfunction, whether underactive, called hypothyroidism, or in less common cases, overactive, called hyperthyroidism. And here's the part that should genuinely concern you. Researchers estimate that as many as half of these cases go completely undiagnosed because the symptoms overlap so significantly with what people simply expect to feel as they age. Your thyroid produces hormones that regulate your metabolism, literally the speed at which every cell in your body converts fuel into energy. When thyroid function declines, and it becomes far more common with age, the effects ripple outward into nearly every system you have: your energy, your weight, your mood, your heart, your skin, your hair, even your memory. This is exactly why it gets confused with so many other conditions, and exactly why I want to walk you through it carefully tonight. Stay with me through all 5 signs, because the final one involves your heart specifically, and it's a connection that very few people are aware of, even though the research behind it is substantial. Before we get into it, drop a comment below and tell me your age and whether you've ever had your thyroid checked. I read every single comment on this channel, and I respond to as many as I genuinely can. Your input shapes exactly what I bring you in future videos. Alright, let's count down from 5 to 1. Number 5. Unexplained weight gain, even without changes to your diet or activity level. This is the symptom I hear about constantly, and it's also the one that gets the most judgment attached to it, both from others and unfortunately sometimes from people themselves. Patients tell me, "I haven't changed anything about how I eat, I'm still walking every day, but the weight keeps creeping up." And too often, this gets brushed aside with a generic comment about slowing metabolism with age, as if that explanation alone settles the matter. Here's what's actually happening physiologically. Your thyroid hormone, specifically a hormone called T3, directly regulates your basal metabolic rate, the amount of energy your body burns simply existing, before you even factor in exercise or movement. When thyroid hormone production declines, a condition called hypothyroidism, your basal metabolic rate can drop measurably, sometimes by 15 to 40%, depending on severity. Think of your metabolism like a thermostat setting for your entire body's furnace. When that thermostat gets turned down without your knowledge, your body simply burns fewer calories for the exact same activities you've always done, and the resulting weight gain happens gradually, often over months, making it incredibly difficult to connect to any single cause. A study published in the journal Thyroid found that older adults with subclinical hypothyroidism, meaning mildly low thyroid function that often doesn't trigger a formal diagnosis under standard testing thresholds, still experienced measurable increases in body weight and body fat percentage compared to age-matched adults with normal thyroid function, even when calorie intake and activity levels were statistically controlled for in the analysis. This is an important detail because it means you don't need a severe, obvious thyroid problem to experience these effects. Even borderline, not quite low enough to treat thyroid function can measurably affect your weight, This becomes increasingly relevant after 65 because thyroid function naturally tends to decline with age in many individuals, and autoimmune thyroid conditions, particularly Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which gradually damages the thyroid gland's ability to produce hormone, become significantly more common as we get older. I recall a 67-year-old retired nurse who had gained nearly 20 pounds over 18 months despite swearing nothing in her routine had changed. She'd been quietly blaming herself, assuming she simply wasn't being honest enough about her eating habits. A thyroid panel revealed clearly elevated TSH, the hormone that signals your thyroid is underperforming. After several months of appropriate thyroid hormone replacement, she not only stopped gaining weight, she lost 12 pounds without changing anything else about her diet. She told me, I spent over a year feeling guilty about something that was never actually my fault. Number 4, persistent fatigue and a feeling of mental sluggishness even after adequate sleep. This sign overlaps with several other conditions we've discussed in previous videos, B12 deficiency among them, which is exactly why thyroid dysfunction gets so frequently overlooked or misattributed. The description patients give is remarkably consistent: a heavy, almost foggy exhaustion that doesn't respond to sleep, caffeine, or rest the way ordinary tiredness usually does. Here's the biological explanation. Thyroid hormone is required for proper mitochondrial function throughout your body, the cellular structures responsible for generating energy. Without adequate thyroid hormone, your cells, including your brain cells, become less efficient at producing usable energy, leaving you in a state of chronic low-grade fatigue that simply doesn't lift no matter how much you rest. This is fundamentally different from ordinary tiredness because it's happening at the cellular level, not simply because you stayed up too late or had a stressful day. Research published in the European Journal of Endocrinology found that older adults with untreated hypothyroidism showed measurably reduced performance on standardized tests of attention, processing speed, and working memory compared to those with normal thyroid function, and importantly, these cognitive measures improved significantly after thyroid hormone levels were corrected through treatment. This tells us something important. The cognitive fog associated with low thyroid function is not a permanent decline. It's a reversible symptom of an underlying, treatable hormonal imbalance. This becomes particularly tricky to identify after 65 because mild fatigue and some degree of mental slowing are genuinely common with normal aging, which gives low thyroid function the perfect camouflage. The key distinguishing factor I tell my patients to watch for is severity and persistence that feels disproportionate. Fatigue that doesn't improve even on days when you've slept well, eaten well, and haven't done anything particularly demanding. Number 3, feeling unusually cold, even in environments where others feel comfortable. This is the sign that gets the least attention, yet it's one of the most reliable indicators clinically. Patients describe needing extra blankets when their spouse is perfectly comfortable, wearing sweaters indoors during moderate weather, or feeling persistently cold in their hands and feet regardless of the season. This often gets dismissed as simply poor circulation or another vague byproduct of aging. But thyroid hormone plays a direct measurable role in your body's heat production. Here's why this happens. Thyroid hormone regulates thermogenesis, your body's ability to generate heat at the cellular level. It does this partly by influencing how efficiently your mitochondria produce energy, with a portion of that energy production releasing heat as a natural byproduct. When thyroid function declines, this heat-generating process slows down significantly, and your body becomes less able to maintain its core temperature efficiently, leaving you feeling cold even in environments that should feel perfectly comfortable. A study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism measured core body temperature and cold tolerance in older adults with varying degrees of thyroid function and found a clear, statistically significant correlation between lower thyroid hormone levels and both lower resting body temperature and greater subjective sensitivity to cold environments. This wasn't simply patients reporting they felt cold, their actual measured body temperature was lower. This symptom is particularly useful diagnostically because it's relatively specific and not as easily explained away by other common age-related conditions the way fatigue or weight changes can be. If you've noticed a genuine, persistent shift in your cold tolerance, something that's different from how you used to feel, even 5 or 10 years ago, this is worth specifically mentioning to your doctor rather than simply adjusting your thermostat and moving on. Quick note here, if this information is proving useful, take a moment to subscribe to this channel because every week we cover exactly this kind of detailed research-backed health information that a brief standard appointment often doesn't have time to fully explore. Number 2, dry skin, thinning hair, and brittle nails that seem to be worsening over time. This sign tends to get treated as purely cosmetic, something to address with better moisturizer or different hair products, when in reality, it can be one of the more visible external indicators of an internal hormonal problem. Patients, particularly women, often mention this to me almost apologetically, as though it's a vanity concern rather than a legitimate medical clue, when in fact it can be genuinely diagnostically meaningful. The mechanism here involves thyroid hormone's role in regulating skin cell turnover and the function of hair follicles. Thyroid hormone influences how quickly your skin cells regenerate and how effectively your sebaceous glands produce natural oils that keep skin hydrated. Without adequate thyroid hormone, skin cell turnover slows down, leading to skin that becomes noticeably drier, rougher, and sometimes scalier than before. Similarly, hair follicles require adequate thyroid hormone to maintain their normal growth cycle, and insufficient thyroid hormone can push more hair follicles into a resting phase prematurely, leading to noticeable thinning, particularly across the scalp, and sometimes even thinning of the outer third of the eyebrows specifically, a detail many clinicians consider a relatively distinctive sign of thyroid dysfunction. A study published in the International Journal of Trichology examined hair and skin changes in patients with confirmed hypothyroidism and found significant improvement in both skin hydration measures and hair density measurements after thyroid hormone levels were corrected through treatment, with measurable improvement typically becoming apparent within 3 to 6 months of beginning appropriate treatment. This reinforces that these changes, while they can feel discouraging and are often dismissed as simply unavoidable aging, are frequently reversible once the underlying thyroid issue is properly addressed. I think of a 71-year-old former hairdresser who came to me specifically because she said something felt different about her hair loss compared to typical age-related thinning she had seen in clients throughout her career. Her instinct, informed by decades of professional experience, turned out to be correct. Her thyroid panel showed clear hypothyroidism, and after treatment, her hairdresser's trained eye noticed measurable improvement in hair density within about 4 months. She told me, "I spent my whole career telling clients their thinning hair was just age. I never once thought to ask whether it could be something else in my own case." And now, number 1. An unusually slow heart rate or new feelings of breathlessness with minimal exertion. This is the sign I consider most critical because it connects directly to long-term cardiovascular risk, and it's a connection that remains genuinely underappreciated even among patients who are otherwise quite health conscious. Here's why this matters so much. Thyroid hormone has a direct effect on your heart's contractility, how forcefully it pumps with each beat, and on your heart rate itself. When thyroid hormone is insufficient, your heart rate can slow down measurably, a condition called bradycardia, and your heart's pumping efficiency can decline, sometimes leading to breathlessness with activities that previously felt entirely manageable, climbing a flight of stairs, carrying groceries, or walking briskly to catch up with a friend. Beyond the immediate symptoms, there's a longer-term cardiovascular concern that deserves serious attention. Untreated hypothyroidism is associated with elevated LDL cholesterol levels because thyroid hormone plays a role in how efficiently your liver clears cholesterol from your bloodstream. A study published in the journal Circulation found that older adults with untreated subclinical hypothyroidism had a significantly higher risk of coronary heart disease events over a follow-up period compared to those with normal thyroid function, and that this risk was particularly pronounced in those with more significantly elevated TSH levels. This means thyroid dysfunction isn't simply an inconvenience affecting your energy or your weight. It can be quietly contributing to cardiovascular risk over years, entirely without obvious symptoms beyond the subtle ones we've already discussed. What makes this especially important for adults over 65 is that age itself is already associated with naturally evolving cardiovascular risk, which means an undiagnosed thyroid issue can essentially be adding fuel to a fire that's already smoldering without anyone realizing an additional correctable factor is actively making things worse. The encouraging news is that appropriate thyroid hormone treatment, when properly monitored, has been shown in multiple studies to improve these cardiovascular risk markers, sometimes significantly, particularly when treatment begins before the dysfunction has been present for many years. If any of these 5 signs sounded familiar tonight, unexplained weight gain, persistent unexplained fatigue, an unusual sensitivity to cold, changes in your skin, hair, or nails, or a slower heart rate paired with new breathlessness, I want to genuinely encourage you to ask your doctor specifically for a thyroid panel, including TSH, free T4, and ideally free T3, rather than assuming these symptoms are simply the inevitable price of getting older. This is an inexpensive, widely available blood test, and identifying a thyroid issue early can meaningfully change your trajectory across nearly every system we discussed tonight. All of the research referenced this evening, from the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, the journal Thyroid, the European Journal of Endocrinology, the International Journal of Trichology, and the journal Circulation, are linked in the description below. I encourage you to review them and bring them with you to your next medical appointment for a more informed, specific conversation. If you found tonight's video valuable, please subscribe to this channel because every week I bring you exactly this kind of thorough, research-backed health information specifically relevant to adults over 65. The kind of detailed explanation a rushed standard appointment often simply doesn't have time to give you. Now I genuinely want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 signs resonated most with your own experience and whether you've had your thyroid checked recently. I read every single comment, and your story might be exactly what helps someone else watching tonight finally connect symptoms they've been quietly living with for years. Take good care of yourself. You deserve real answers, not simply an assumption that everything difficult about how you feel is just an unavoidable part of growing older. I'll see you in the next one.